Remember when in Metal Gear Solid Snake, Old Snake, had to crawl through a hallway while having the fluid inside his body boiled? Video game consoles kind of had to do that as well at one point. I don't know if you remember, these days they just casually skate from one generation to the next. I think it's time to bring back microwave hallways and make all consoles crawl through them figuratively. It makes everything better, you know what I'm saying? You probably don't know what I'm saying, so I'll elaborate a bit. So tech companies are cramming AI down our throats and there's nothing we can do about it. Worse still, in the AI rush to get those data centers up to power all these AIs that none of us want, all kinds of other industries are being trampled along the way. By now you're probably sick about hearing about RAM shortages, but it's a pretty far-reaching issue for people who are both like building computers, but also it impacts plans for next generation video game consoles. I've been thinking a lot about next generation, and honestly, I don't want to be thinking about next generation consoles. One of the things that popped into my head, and it's a bit of a rambly thought, so it might not make sense, but we're gonna go with it. What if this AI issue and RAM scarcity ends up being a kind of good thing for gamers? There hasn't been any concrete news about the timeline of the PlayStation 6, but there has been reports that the RAM shortage could mean that Sony's next console could be delayed as far as 2029. This was reportedly being described as a major upset for the company's plans internally, and I'm sure it is a major upset. I don't care though. That phrase, major upset, has been annoying me. I know we don't see all the ins and outs of how these companies make decisions, and my peanut-sized brain couldn't really fathom the amount of internal and external factors probably at play in deciding when new consoles come out. But based on what I do see, for me, it feels like the business of it is dictating everything, and I am 100% sure that is true because capitalism. But more and more, I felt like I and other people are actually being done a bit of a disservice now, maybe even shortchanged by the platform holders. I don't like feeling like new hardware is being released because it needs to hit a window on a business calendar. There was a time when we'd be playing games and eventually a new console felt necessary. Like it felt like the thing under our TV was basically on its last legs at death's door. And then from that point on, there could still be like a year or two before we actually get that new hardware. But that window before a console is put out to pasture was often where some of the coolest games were made. And to an extent, that still happens today. We had stuff like The Last of Us Part 2, which I'm not a huge fan of, but people like that game. It's impressive at various points. Resident Evil 2 Remake, incredible. Sekiro, known liker of Sekiro here. And there were a bunch of other games in the twilight years of the PS4. But more and more, I felt like that window isn't being utilized to its fullest. I've felt in the last couple generations that consoles still had way more to give, or there was way more developers could do. Like the consoles just haven't felt like they've been pushed to their limits lately. Admittedly, once again, I'm an idiot and I have very little experience in designing and developing games. So maybe the consoles are being pushed to the limit. But what I'd say is, I think the measure of power and thus the running out of power is often visuals. Like the bells and whistles relate to how a game looks and behaves based on physics and other technicalities of the engine. And the moment the thing doesn't look the shiniest it could be, and they aren't using whatever the newest tech is, people just seem to say this hardware is now done, it's washed, time to move on. That is what my feelings are kind of centered on, mainly because it bums me out that we don't have these last hurrah lineups for modern consoles like we used to. Games that felt like they kind of drew a line under a console in a definitive way and they signaled that it was time to move on, but did it with flair and creativity. And it was so interesting that you felt good about making that jump. Like you were like, this is a great way to say goodbye to these consoles. These days, that happens. We don't say goodbye to consoles anymore. And if we do, it's not really a, I'm gonna miss you, buddy. We had a great time together. It's just like, see ya. There's like this blurring of the transition where games towards like the tail end of consoles these days, the last couple of generations at least, tend to be like a version of a game built for the new console, but crappier. People always talk about constraints being one of the biggest factors in inspiring creativity and innovation. I genuinely believe that's true. But I think the industry just doesn't seem to let people work in that part of a hardware's life cycle anymore, or at least not long enough for something outside of the box and unexpected to be made. Because of the way hardware is released, which dictated by business considerations above all else, by the time we're approaching that microwave hallway period, new consoles are already on the verge of release. So like, imagine if you were training for a marathon, but you kept stopping your running sessions before you actually got tired. If you do that, you're never moving into that zone, the microwave hallway, where you're truly being tested and you have to push yourself and make those breakthroughs. That zone is where the actual training you need to grow into a marathon runner is happening, but you're skipping it. The eagerness with which we move to new hardware feels like it's causing a stagnation in design as well. I'm not saying there aren't good games out there. There are plenty, especially towards the end of a console's life. What I'm saying that is so rare that one of those games is truly new and exciting and something revolutionary is happening there anymore. And because of that, I think games, especially first party and a lot of AAA games, feel like they're just the same old ideas, but with the graphics turned up to the max. I know I've primarily talked about PlayStation here, but Xbox is in the exact same position for me. In actual fact, it feels like more pronounced on Xbox. The Xbox One for me was very underwhelming, and thus far the Series X has also been similarly disappointing. I know this game's coming up, but it's been a few years, and that thing has done very little for me. So when I start seeing PlayStation 6 chat and seeing Microsoft start talking about Project Helix, it kind of reignites that feeling that new consoles are coming because of the business churn instead of because we actually really need them. Because of that, I think I'm really interested and honestly a little excited by what it could mean if the PlayStation 6 is delayed beyond where Sony planned for it to launch, or if it takes the next Xbox longer to get to market. Maybe there's something good that could happen in there, like it used to. I think that could be a decision that pushes developers into that uncomfortable zone where they try something out of the box, and maybe we get something truly new and memorable there. And maybe they get a little more freedom to do something smaller or try out a quirky passion project, because at a certain point, the platform holders just need to make sure people remain engaged and their existing hardware is staying in the fight so they can hopefully bring that audience to the new thing. And maybe that's where they say, yep, we can't afford to have you make a game for 3 years. Just make a bunch of small things, do something cool that will get people hype. I think more than anything though, I think with a delayed timeline, we'll be actually able to appreciate the consoles we have much more before we start looking ahead to what's coming. I want to feel like I got my money's worth, or like I spent a lot of time and made lasting memories with the old age consoles before I put them in a care home. So maybe the whole RAM shortage thing could be to our benefit. And if we can watch generative AI crash and burn at the same time, that would be pretty cool. Or maybe I'm just losing the plot and actually I need to be in the microwave hallway. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. Anyways, just another quick video. Thank you for watching. I didn't do one of these last week because I focused on doing a Q&A for Returnal. Damn, I am already in the microwave hallway. My brain is there, boys. Saros. So if you haven't watched that, please go take a look. It's cool. I held a handy cam and as you can see, my stability is not there. It's not there. Camera's constantly focusing in and out. It's not a good viewing experience. So yeah, go and watch it. I'm sure you'll like it. Anyways, I'm gonna head out. Please subscribe while you're here. I'd appreciate it very much. Share it if you can. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Peace. Peace.